At the dawn of the first-person shooter genre, id Software taught the gaming community a lesson which is yet to be forgotten. There are few things more satisfying than killing Nazis.
Each and every man under my command owes me 100 Nazi scalps. And I want my scalps. And all y'all will get me 100 Nazi scalps, taken from the heads of 100 dead Nazis. Or you will die trying.
In 2014, Machine Games revitalized id series with their New Order reboot, and while none of their games have been perfect, they are all well-playing, fun games, which try to strike a balance between balls-to-the-wall action, above-average first-person stealth, and well-directed story cinematics.
I have to find a way to contact the U.S. military. I gotta find my unit, let them know I'm alive and ready for duty.
There's no more war.
It's over. No more military. No.
The war ain't over. Look at all these Nazis walking around.
They won.
It's over. The Nazis rule the world now. They are everywhere.
The balance is not always struck successfully, though, with New Order starting to look more like a fluke in that department than the rule for the series. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus was met with some criticism for both the frequency and length of its cutscenes outweighing the gameplay, as well as an uneven tone which bounced between dead serious story arcs about the Holocaust and racism in early 20th century America.
What is it with you damn Jews? Have all the answers, do you? Smart-mouth goddamn Jew. I married you, I figured your father'd be an asset. But you just a damn millstone, sticking your nose into my business instead of handling your own. If you can't raise a boy right, I'll do it for you.
Get away!
You done great bitch! Hiding in the closet.
And over-the-top comedic moments.
Hey, little fella. What are you doing here? It's dangerous here. You have to be so quiet. We gotta go.
Personally, I didn't mind the tone shifts or the frequency of the cinematics and felt the weakest aspect of the game was the level design, but it's fairly unanimous that The New Order was the superior title. In addition to the two games in the main series, a prequel spin-off called The Old Blood came out between them and was widely regarded as a fantastic interim piece, which was well-paced and reasonably priced. The game I'm looking at today is a similar spin-off, which looks to keep the series in the public consciousness until the inevitable Wolfenstein 3 is announced. This past weekend, an American friend and I played through Wolfenstein Youngblood. Youngblood is a much different type of spin-off than The Old Blood was. While The Old Blood felt much like an expansion for The New Order, Youngblood feels much more like its own thing. It's a two-player, co-op focused adventure, which retains the feel and art direction of the other games in the series, but adds in a lot of mechanics that will feel familiar to anyone with experience in the looter-shooter genre. That's an awkward way to put it, as there isn't really any loot in the game, but like Destiny, The Division, or Borderlands, the enemies are leveled, with those who outlevel you feeling like complete bullet sponges. You gain XP to earn skills and collect money to upgrade your weapons. The core design philosophy will likely be a big sticking point for a lot of people. Do you enjoy feeling like you have your back up against the wall for the first part of a game, which incentivizes you to hunt down side activities, earn upgrades, and eventually earn your way to feeling OP? If so, you'll probably have a fine time playing Youngblood with a friend. But if you don't like that kind of game design and are hoping for another straightforward, story-focused Wolfenstein game, Youngblood is going to be a massive disappointment and you should steer clear of it. Youngblood feels very much like an attempt at marrying the Wolfenstein gameplay to a semi-open-world live service format. It's a weird choice, and it feels like it was made for potentially nefarious reasons, no matter how you look at it. It may have been to pad the game out and make it feel like there are more than 5 actual missions in the game, as if we're going to be real, there are only 5 actual linear missions in the game. There's a tutorial level on a Zeppelin, 3 tower raids, which are great if you can overlook the rough sewer segments required to access them, and a final mission which adds an awesome new mechanic and would absolutely be the best mission in the game were it not for the infuriatingly cheap final boss fight. My co-op partner and I spent a solid 90 minutes of coming close to victory before being one-shot killed by the boss, who had the "you're not a high enough level" skull on his health bar, despite the fact that we were both the precise recommended level for the final mission. Oh, and he has air support, which would also one-shot us, just with a far wider area of effect. Double jumping, staying as nimble as possible, and laying as much damage on him as you can using the Kraftwerk weapons are the only pieces of advice I can give you. You can't take out the VTOL, you just have to stay nimble, focus on the boss, and hope that you don't die.
We shall all die when Franklin falls.
Got him.
Level 37.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
The other reason this decision may have been made is to shoehorn in microtransactions like XP boosters. If players are frustrated by the grinding and just want to level their characters up to a strength level which makes the game feel like the other games in the series, you have the option to pay Bethesda to hurry this process along. I recently touched on this practice in my Witcher 3 video and how CD Projekt is not guilty of it, but Bethesda has no shame about it, and Youngblood is absolutely less fun than it could have been because of it. The first 6 hours of the game are rough. If you do a lot of side quests and get your characters and gear appropriately leveled, the back half of the game is much more fun. But the presence of those microtransactions makes it difficult to ignore that maybe they could have just made the whole game fun, instead of psychologically nudging players towards buying their way to the fun part. My other main issue with the gameplay is that the blood and gore seem very toned down compared to the other games in the series. I get that the two teen sisters you play as in Youngblood aren't supposed to be the hulking brute that series protagonist BJ Blazkowicz is, but the melee kill animations in the other games were so impressive that you really feel their absence here. They are still there technically, but without the same visual punch that they had in the other games. A shotgun will still gib a Nazi in a satisfying manner from time to time, but even that feels kind of inconsistent. Like it happens sometimes, but not other times. The story in the game does exist, but it's limited to around 5 cutscenes, with 2 in the opening before you ever take control of a character, and all the rest taking place before, during, and after the final mission. You and your friend will take control of BJ and Anya Blazkowicz's twin daughters, Jess and Soph. Thankfully, these two are characterized quite well through the in-game dialogue, as they don't have the benefit of long, well-written cutscenes, which took BJ from being generic shooter hero number 1 to a well-formed character with hopes, dreams, and vulnerabilities.
Her name is Anya. She takes good care of me. She takes care of everyone. She holds this place together. Supposed to be married by now, but hasn't happened.
Let me show you something, Billy. My father told me, if I ever had a son, I should give this to him. It is an engagement ring. It has been with our family for 8 generations. Can you imagine that, Billy? It is what they call an heirloom. When you meet someone special, you will place this ring on her finger. It is worth a lot, this ring.
Shit. Must be 100 damn degrees outside.
Do not tell your father about this ring. He will take it. He does not know about it. You know how he is.
Sophia!
To nie chłop, panie Błaskowicz. Nie taki przystojny jak ja, ale nieźle, nieźle. Pilnuj jej. Rozumiemy się? Albo ja cię znajdę i zrobię ci krzywdę.
Rozumiem.
Dobrze. Dobrze.
Story in Youngblood is sparse, and the tone of the game is much more lighthearted than the new Colossus. BJ has gone missing, so his 2 spunky teen daughters suit up in power armor, disobey their mom, take their friend Abby to be their quote-quote guy in the chair, and go on a trip to Paris to hunt some Nazis and find their dad. There is one aspect of the story which gets more complicated than this, and it is shockingly close to the premise of Amazon Prime's The Man in the High Castle. I won't say any more here to avoid spoilers, but if people were concerned that The Man in the High Castle was plagiarizing Wolfenstein, it seems like Wolfenstein is going with the don't get mad, get even strategy. The biggest point of confusion with the narrative is where it fits into the canon of the game so far. Characters, items, and events of the previous games, as well as some events which have not yet taken place, are referenced. The first 2 games take place in the 1960s, and Youngblood takes place in the 1980s, presumably after the 3rd game. BJ having already killed Hitler and America being liberated come up in dialogue more than once, and we've yet to see either of those things happen in the main series, so if Youngblood is canon, they sort of spoiled the ending of the 3rd game and the fact that Europe will still be controlled by the Nazis decades later. Old Blood functioned as a much more neat and tidy prequel to the New Order, and it didn't raise nearly as many questions, so part of me thinks that Arkane and Machine Games might have been better off with a similar premise, say a game that bridges the new Colossus to the as-yet unnamed but inevitable 3rd game. As it stands, I can't recommend this game on the sole basis of its function as a piece of the new Wolfenstein narrative, because it's unclear how or if it will fit into the bigger picture. That being said, all of the performances are great, with Brian Bloom killing it once again as an even older and more world-weary BJ, and the three female leads, Valerie Rose Lohman, Shelby Young, and Jasmine Savoy Brown, putting in solid freshman turns as Jess, Soph, and Abby. My worry over the initial trailers was that the sisters were going to be annoying and seem like teen girls trying to do an impression of BJ, but they're actually lots of fun. They have a running gag where they refer to each other as their favorite literary duo, who kind of sound like a riff on Holmes and Watson, and they do fun things like dance while they're in elevators, which is adorably dorky. Co-op is how I played the game exclusively, so if you're looking to play this solo, check out some other videos. I know that G-Man, Appabend, Upper Echelon, Jim Sterling, and SkillUp all have videos out, so there's no shortage of takes from non-mainstream sources to check out if you're looking to play solo, but I really can't offer any insight on that. The co-op mechanics were solid, and I quite liked the revive system. Reviving a down partner is fast and recovers a suitably low amount of health at first, which will incentivize you to level up the associated abilities. There's also a shared life system in which you have 3 lives between the two of you, so if you can't reach your partner for a revive or you both die at the same time, you have 3 chances to stay in the game. If you lose all your lives, you go back punishingly far. Some may see that as a negative, but personally I felt it added some tension to the game and makes you really value the lives that you have, but I can honestly see people getting super frustrated by that at the same time, so don't take that as a 100% positive feature. With all that being said, both myself and my co-op partner did have a lot of fun playing the game, and with the game launching at half-price retail, it's not a game which should be written off completely or called bad, but a lot of aspects of the game are kind of bad. And a lot of others are pretty good. Wolfenstein Youngblood is either a good bad game or a bad good game, but it's hard to safely call it one or the other. If you have a friend who you're looking to play a good-looking, solid-feeling co-op shooter with, there are worse ways you can spend 40 Canadian dollars. However, the sparse story, looter-shooter light design, enemy level scaling, and option for mitigating some of those flaws with microtransactions make it impossible for me to strongly recommend this game. I also completed the game and played more hours of it than would generally fit into my shorter takes aim videos. I did take aim at it, and I think the net verdict of Wolfenstein Youngblood is ultimately negative, so I've got to pull the trigger on this one. There is fun to be had with Wolfenstein Youngblood, but unless you've got a buddy ready for co-op and a strong desire to play a new shooter, I think it's best that you wait for a sale or save it for when Wolfenstein 3 is on the horizon and you're looking for an appetizer. As far as right now is concerned, you should probably skip it. The mainstream press is giving this a shockingly high Metacritic average, and they will probably argue against my ultimately negative opinion of the game, but as Oscar Wilde once said, they don't think it be like it is, but it do. Yeah, I know that was Oscar Gamble, not Oscar Wilde. I just think it's super funny to inaccurately attribute that quote to Oscar Wilde.